Salutations readers, welcome back to my channel. My name is Nkechi, and for today I'm giving you a book review video for The Familiar by Leigh Bardugo. So, full disclosure, y'all, I have no actual notes as far as what I want to say. I did not structure my thoughts on this book, so we'll see where things go as far as what I talk about. I'll try to have some sort of a structure, but apologies because I could not be bothered. I could not figure out a way to just do it, to structure this. I'm just gonna say what are my thoughts on this book because why not? Now, I don't know if any of y'all remember, The Familiar by Leigh Bardugo was an anticipated release of 2024 for me, but I was very hesitant to even bother with it because I have... Leigh Bardugo and I, we were kind of like hit or miss as far as like reader-author partnership with regarding my reads with her books. Like, I did not read the Grisher trilogy. I read the Six of Crows duology. I did not touch the King of Scars duology. I tried to read Ninth House, found it was a series, and I really didn't like the main character at the time. DNF'd it halfway through, so I did not bother. Now we have The Familiar, which is a standalone historical fantasy set in the Golden Age, or really during the Spanish Inquisition, really, I should say, where we follow a young woman who's a scullion named Lucia, who has some sort of like magical powers where she says like these words. It's kind of like a mixture of languages, and she's able to make like miracles. But then she was caught by like the mistress of the house. Lucia starts performing them because that's what the mistress of the house wants her to do, and then she also gets the attention of a formerly disgraced advisor of this King of Spain, and how he wants to return like for a favor from him. Now, I will say this is gonna be a spoiler-free review. I don't think I really have anything spoiler-y to really talk about this book. I just want to say my 2 cents on this book. In my little corner of the internet, I've just been seeing some people who are disappointed with this book, who are kind of like, yeah, might not be Leigh Bardugo's best, or something like that. And I'll just say, I'm not saying that this is like the best Leigh Bardugo work, honestly. I'm still biased to Six of Crows duology. But I just think that this is a little bit better than what I'm seeing some reviews are saying. Now, I know there's other people who have given this book 5 stars. I've seen people give it 5 stars, 4.5 stars, and I see people give it 2.5, 3 stars. Or people just straight up DNF it. And I'm just here to say, I did enjoy reading The Familiar. Granted, I did hybrid read this, so I had the physical book, but I also listened to the audiobook, which was narrated by, I think, Lauren Fortgain. The narrator did a good job with narrating the voice of Lucia and regarding her mind. The entire story is mainly in Lucia's perspective, but we also do get the perspective of the mistress of the house that she's working for. So it is somewhat multi-POV, but for the most part, it is mostly just in Lucia's perspective. Now, I also did make note of some content warnings, which I will also make note of some of them here, but I will make note of a little bit later in my review, if you're curious as well. And I also will list the content warnings also in the video description if you just want to like read it from there instead. Do it all as you wish, but I just want to let y'all know I will be providing content warnings as well. Let me just say some initial thoughts, some initial reactions, is that honestly, I think this is just really, first of all, it's well written. I think Leigh Bardugo has written enough books that like I can just say like she knows how to write, okay? I don't need to worry about like the penmanship here. It's pretty solid as far as the penmanship. I really actually like it. I actually really like how it also felt really lush and descriptive in some places as well. So Leigh Bardugo's writing really worked for me here, which is something I was hoping for, but also part of me also expected because like she's written so many books at this point. I think it just makes sense that her writing should be pretty solid. Now, as far as the characters themselves, this is where I'm kind of like, I did enjoy it, but I'm also like not really sure. Like back in my mind, I'm kind of like, I'm not really sure how I feel about it a little bit. So as far as like our main character Lucia, she has ambition, but the way she wants to achieve her ambition gets her in trouble. Not in a way that's dumb and stupid, but like kind of the way that like leaves her a little bit more ignorant, because she wants to be more than just a scullion maid, pretty much. And she's able to perform miracles, so she's able to gain favor, get adoration, and get like some sort of level of respect and recognition. Then yeah, she's gonna perform these miracles, even though she is literally a Jewish woman, and this is during the Spanish Inquisition, where they go for people who are like anyone who's Jewish or Jewish adjacent, and like if you don't convert, you're gonna die. So like honestly, she's pretty bold out here in these streets, trying to be out here doing these miracles, okay? She was bold. In fact, even her aunt was kind of looking at her like, what the fuck are you doing? I can commend Lucia on her being ambitious, but girl, let's be tactical here. Which is where I do kind of appreciate her aunt, the aunt character here, because her aunt was a little bit more, her aunt also has ambition, but she was cunning. Her aunt is the more cunning one here. Salutations, y'all. So this is editing me coming in to let y'all know that I had to cut a part of this book review video because I realized now in editing how spoilery it actually all is. So it pretty much was talking about a particular romance, and if you've read the book, you know what the romance is between. And I realized that it is not good to really actually talk about that part just yet, since it is very much spoilery. But just to let y'all know, there is a romance between certain characters that's very much prominent here. And that particular romance was my main issue with kind of like what I really wasn't sure about with the book. But I didn't want to talk too much about it because if you haven't read it, well, it won't really make much sense for me to really go around it the way I talked about it originally, and I couldn't edit all those parts out without it seeming very incoherent. So just want to let y'all know about that. But anyways, let's get back to our regular scheduled programming. Thank you. But the thing though, let's see what else about the characters. Again, the aunt character, I did also like her cunning. The mistress character, she was fine. Leigh Bardugo is trying to definitely put more like focus on her as a character because she does do more things regarding in the actual story than I would have thought initially. Honestly, I had no idea the mistress character was gonna has like a prominent perspective chapters, honestly. So that was actually pretty interesting. I think that's it, like, as far as like what I can say about characters. Now, as far as the plot, this is not the strongest as far as plot, and I think this is where a lot of people are disappointed. Even though I do find it interesting though that people will be disappointed like regarding there's not much happening regarding the plot, but honestly, I don't think Leigh Bardugo's stories are strong in the plot. I think the thing that makes it strong is the characters. So I do have to say that this does have a plot. I don't think it's the strongest plot, like regarding this competition as far as like who can perform these miracles, who can have like be some sort of a close servant to like the king or something. Sound like that. I think I'm remembering, I might be misremembering specific details on this competition, but Lucia wants to participate in that. And as far as the plot of that, it's not the strongest here, honestly. I do find a few weak points, especially towards the end. But I do think that's more regarding like the historical time, the time period that Leigh Bardugo is writing within, and the specific events that happen in history that Leigh Bardugo is trying to like lead up to that point. So that kind of makes the whole competition thing feel like a little bit like not fully strong and in its bones, honestly, because Leigh Bardugo is trying to be concise into not just this time period, but really like the actual historical events in this time period and this point in time and place regarding very specific characters that actually were historical figures in history. So I can see what she was trying to do, but I'm also just like, But again, that's kind of the thing regarding like a historical fantasy that you have to just kind of like know in the back of your mind, is that there are going to be things, there's going to be these decisions and characters that might be inspired by actual historical figures or historical events, and you're just kind of like, well, does this feel natural to the plot progression, or do you feel like, okay, this is going to be kind of shoehorned in here because it needs to fit for this particular event in history, so it all makes sense. I hope that makes sense anyways. So yeah, the plot here is definitely not the strongest. I did find the characters more interesting, and I also really like the fact too that this is a historical fantasy, because I have felt like, at least with like Six of Crows, it felt historical leaning, even though it's not based on an actual historical, like it's not based on like actual historical events or anything, but this one does. And I actually think that is a pretty strong suit. At least that's a suit that I was most interested in here, besides like the plot. Like I really liked learning about the Spanish Inquisition and like what it felt like to be a Jewish person during this time in Spain. I think that actually is a very interesting selling point to me for this book. And I also really like the magical bits too, because the magical bits is called, I think they're called the Refranes, I don't remember what, Refranes, I think that's what it said in the audiobook. And it's pretty much like a mixture of languages. So there is a mixture of Hebrew, Spanish, I don't remember, there's a few other languages as well. And I found it to be very, very interesting, honestly. That kind of a concept of like a magic is very interesting. It's not the strongest magic system, it's not a hard magic system, it's very soft, but I just like kind of how it was just used. And it's not trying to do anything big or anything epic, it's just like we're just doing small stuff like here, even though it has limitless potential to do other things. So in conclusion, I had a good time with this book. I gave this book 4 stars. I I don't think it's the greatest thing is, again, the plot is not very strong here. And I definitely recommend the audiobook, really. The audiobook definitely helps, especially when Lucy is performing her magical miracles. She does say, like, the refinement, which is this mixture, again, the mixture of languages, so, like, I would never know how to pronounce it unless I had the audiobook. So, definitely recommend the audiobook production, and less so really, like, a reading with your eyeball experience if you can listen to an audiobook. Now, as far as, like, purchasing a copy of it, you might want to hold off on purchasing a copy of it. I was just lucky in the fact that, sure, I purchased a copy of it when I initially intended to just borrow it from the library. Which, technically I did. I did borrow the audiobook from my library, but I had no intentions initially to purchase a physical copy of The Familiar. I was just lucky enough that I had a good time with the Familiar that I'm glad I actually did purchase it. But as far as for y'all, I don't full on recommend just purchasing outright if you have not read it already. I do just recommend it just borrowing it if you can, and if you are able to and really are interested in audiobooks, please listen to the audiobook. Lauren Fortgang did a good job, I believe, with the narration. And as far as content warnings, I will give you a quick list of content warnings here. So we have torture, which is on page, where this is bigotry on page, anti-Semitism, death, violence, sexual content, which is not excruciatingly graphic, but it's still on page to some extent. We have misogyny, blood and gore, animal death is also on page, vomit, alcohol, body horror, death of the parent, which is more in past tense, so more minor, sexual assault, which is brief and also past. But yeah, that's pretty much like the list of content warnings that I gathered from my own reading experience, but also just looking at Storygraph and seeing some other reviews for anyone who provided content warnings as well. Those are the content warnings for The Familiar, and yeah, as far as recommending it, I do recommend just giving it a shot. Although I have seen people, again, who are bored by it because there's not much regarding the plot and you're not as invested in the characters. But I would just recommend this to anyone who is just interested in historical fantasies and who are interested in just reading historical fantasy featuring a Jewish protagonist. Just give it a shot just like regarding that. And if you trust Leigh Bardugo's writing style, I think you will at least appreciate the writing of the story. I can't say anything about if you'll love it or not. I'm still not totally sure like the kind of people who would love a story like this, but I just at least enjoyed it for what it was. Now, if Leigh Bardugo makes more standalone content, I would not mind reading more of her works. I'm just not going to read anything from Alex Stern's series. If she writes more adult works, I also will be checking it out as well, but again, I'm gonna be hesitant. I don't know if I'll be as lucky though with The Familiar as far as purchasing a copy, but for real this time though, if Leigh Bardugo makes like another adult standalone book, I'm definitely gonna borrow from the library just in case. But anyways, that's pretty much it. That's all my thoughts really on The Familiar by Leigh Bardugo. Comment down below your thoughts on The Familiar if you have read it. If you have not read it, are you interested in reading because of my review? Maybe from other people's review, maybe you're not as interested. I'm very much curious just on your thoughts on The Familiar if you have read it. I know it came out this year, so maybe you haven't gone around to it yet, but I don't know. I'm just curious for any of y'all who have. And like this video if you like it, subscribe if you want to, if you like this kind of content from me. I'm hoping to make some more book review videos though. I need to get back into doing it because this is literally the first book review video of the year and I have not made one in like nearly a year. So like, I need to get back into making my book review video game, y'all. But anyways, if you made it this far into the video, you don't have much else to say about the book itself, but you want to leave me an emoji to let me know you're here, leave me a scorpion emoji. You read the book, you know what I'm talking about. Anyways, thank you all for coming on to this video and I hope to see you on my next one. Bye!